think for a while we were the heart guys, which meant that we could make characters seem as though they cared about other characters.
I think even before that, we were like the guys who, like, you were never going to get the Zucker brothers, and you had probably no shot also getting the Farrelly brothers, so you might get the Weitz brothers. There were some other brothers out there. Because I vaguely remember that before we ever, Ants was our first credit, and before that we wrote numerous sort of film parodies. Like we wrote a parody of Steven Spielberg movies, and that was just when we were sort of just anonymously making a living for a while, which was really great. Sorry. Not that I derailed your more coherent answer.
One has to recognize that there's a period, certainly when you're starting, I think it's about 7 years for us, where you're writing stuff that you don't get credited for or that doesn't get made into movies. And during that period, we were definitely comedy writers. But once we got the chance to do something, and once American Pie was successful, and by the way, I should say Adam Hers wrote that, not us, so we only served as directors on that one. But as soon as we could do that, we tried to zig and zag as much as possible. I mean, I think for me it's because I get kind of bored pretty easily and want to go on to the next thing. Probably for both of us, we never wanted to get pigeonholed in one particular genre, and it's easier to establish a kind of a brand or something that you're known for if you keep on making the same sort of picture. But for better or worse, that hasn't been the way that we've wanted it to be.
I'm actually write plays constantly. There's a theater in New York, an off-Broadway theater that does my plays, so I always have sort of a shadow writing life going on. For me, in terms of not repeating a particular sort of subgenre within a genre, it's a combination, I think it was a combination of cowardice and foolhardiness. The cowardice coming from, if you've had success at something, you have the suspicion that you might not, that you'll be trying to recreate that success in some way. And that's almost more as like a writer-director than as purely a writer. And then sort of the foolhardiness is that while writing is, for me at least, a sort of very intimate, lovely little bubble that one can create, it's easy to give over definition of yourself to somebody else. So if you've been defined as being good at something, say human comedies or something, there's a part of me that starts to worry about something deadening, because you're trying to live up to a perspective that somebody is trying to fit you into.
Yeah, so father-son
yeah, actually, yeah, your Better Life is very overtly focused on that. My stuff tends to be really focused on that. About a Boy, certainly, sort of a sort of morally ambiguous character shepherding in some way another character through a passage point in life. Could you help me?
Yes.
What do they call that? Rite of passage. I think
yes.
is the what articulate people
But my brother
call
is trying to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our dad was extremely articulate, spoke in complete and erudite sentences in a terrifying fashion, which nobody in the last 40 years has spoken in, and was also a maniacal figure who was a massive contradictions. He was a wonderful person at the same time, but I think made a big impact on both of us, which were probably sort of
we're probably exercising that in our writing. I think everybody's sort of working with what they've got, and father figures play a big part. Well, Better Life is about an undocumented Mexican gardener and his son. And it's about, first of all, I should say it's written by Eric Eason, story by Roger Simon. And I, as a writer and director, worked along with Eric on it. But it's about a father and son getting to know one another through hardship, basically. The father is an immigrant who wants to remain invisible and just work as hard as he can to put food on the table. And as a result of that, he hasn't had enough time to spend with his son, who misunderstands him, who undervalues him because work is undervalued in our culture, and he's basically brought up by the television, which tells him that he's nothing if he doesn't have a big house and fast car. And so he's in danger of ending up falling into a gang. And it's the father's attempts to keep his son out of the gang by raising their standard of lifestyle, and then the possibility of that opportunity being lost. That takes them all around various spots in Los Angeles. And it's tangentially about immigration, but it's really about the lengths that people will go to take care of their family. I mean, I think that it's impossible to turn the camera or to write a script about something which is politically loaded without it being considered a political act in some way. But in a sense, all we're doing is focusing on the lives of people who have been largely ignored, or who prefer to remain invisible because they're afraid of being seen in this culture and perhaps being caught out. Other than that, it's really constructed more like a thriller than anything else, a thriller sort of buddy picture, because the truck that the father buys to kind of lift them out of poverty is stolen, and father and son have to go and retrieve it. And I think one of the great things about the script that Eric wrote was to keep things unpredictable. It kind of zags when you think it's going to zig, and it's really gratifying to see screening audiences say that they are surprised by it, and at the same time that it illustrates something about their lives, whether it be an Hispanic viewer who said, "This is the story of my uncle," or "This reminds me," I'm going to call my mom right now, or even people who are, most of us are from immigrant families, right? And even people who are not Hispanic or recent immigrants can appreciate the struggles that their parents went through to make life better for them. So that, in a nutshell, albeit a large one, is what it's about. Our grandma is Mexican, and she was an actress in silent films. She was a schoolgirl in Oaxaca in Mexico, and Robert Flaherty, the documentarian, was sent there by Fox Studios to find the most beautiful girl in Mexico. That turned out to be our grandmother. And as I said last time I mentioned this, you can see how genes decline over the course of 2 generations. But so we have Mexican heritage, but that I'd largely fallen out of touch with. So for me to work on the film was a chance to learn Spanish, amongst other things, and I started intensively studying, and I still do.